saying, I don't want to be rescued. I need to rescue myself. If I mean, someone was showing me on Social Galactic a little spoof trailer for the Amazon series with the Galadriel, and there's a potential romantic interest, but she's gonna deny it, right? No, we're here to fight. We need to fight. And it's like, why do the women need to have the armor? What is it about putting, and I'm a little tired because I'm finally getting back to my fencing practice, right? I was at fencing practice last night, fencing women and men. Well, younger people, and the young men can beat me very effectively, and the young women can beat me very effectively. And oh, right, I'm tired. What am I as nearly 60? I'm not yet, but getting pretty close there, playing with toy swords.
Training your self-control. It's not necessarily about the combat, is it?
Well, the irony of it is that I get into fencing back nearly 20 years ago now, because I was interested in the military metaphors in monastic discipline, which have a very strong martial character, which is kind of fascinating. And I realized that physical training, which, as we've been talking about, we don't get on the internet, right? To learn how to be. I now understand that there's a very large community out there on something called Twitch. I spent the last 2 weeks watching YouTube videos on OBS, and wow, there's a lot of people out there that really know how to use this programming, this software to make videos and do this thing called live streaming, and they're all on this platform called Twitch, playing games, right? But they're not physical. They're a simulation of the physical, and it's like, is this spiritual, intellectual? What is it? What is this media place that we're in, which we seem to need to keep thinking about as we find ourselves going further and further into the stream, that simulates combat, but isn't.
For me, it's felt very much like the sharpening of an internal response to provocation. So, like, if you're getting trolled constantly, like we have in all of our chat rooms these bouts. In DCR, you bout your opponents. Like we've encouraged this as well. You have the culture of the.
To be fair to me, the first rule of the Dragon Common Room is salute your opponent, which sometimes people forget.
Yes.
Like they see combat as nothing but coming in and trashing the room and then going, oh, nobody wants to fight, and leaving.
Yes.
I said salute your opponent first.
Salute your opponent. But that's part of it as well. It's like fighting on the internet is learning how to fight well. It's just in a completely different way. People have had that kind of training in dialectical arguments, right, but also in rhetorical arguments. I mean, basically just bombarding each other with slurs until someone reacts, or whether or not you can see the joy in it as well, and understanding it as a way of hazing each other to kind of figure out somebody else's edges and see where they're at, and then open up for a deeper conversation on other issues.
Right.
Kind of like there's like one scene in the second Matrix where Neo fights this guy called Seraph, and he doesn't even tell him he's about to fight him, and so this guy just smacks Neo in the face, and they start having a fight. And he said, "Why did you don't truly know someone until you fight them?" Which I thought was quite a profound statement. That's kind of what we've been doing.
True. Yes.
Yeah. So you don't really know someone until you fight them. You don't really know yourself until you've been fighting. And we're not living in a world where there are requirements for physical combat as much as there are the requirements for the intellectual and spiritual combat. The media environment makes it more pressing that people are prepared to have an internal martial art, right?
Right. But it's interesting. You're right that you're saying it's intellectual. It is spiritual. It has spiritual effects.
Yes.
But the the mode, interestingly, it's highly dialectical theoretically,
Mm.
but for the most part, I don't see the logic in people's reactions. Right? I think I mean now I can't remember whether I said this in our streams yet or not, but I see them as a fencer sort of swiveling their blades around and actually making no real threat of attack. I mean,
Mm.
true fencers one, you don't see it coming because they're quite controlled and still in the way they set things up. And they don't you can tell as someone who's watching for the attack, you can tell the difference between someone's just waving their blade around and there's actually going to become something. And
Mm.
the that's all faking out, and the fake out that I've seen most in the internet world is the as you were saying, getting people to just get angry
Yes.
and lose their focus so that they can't respond well.
Baiting someone until they just blow up. It can be done well and with purpose, but for the most part, I don't think people are really understanding the the value in that kind of pure intellect combat and what you can actually get out of it.
Mm,
Um, we we built this creative studio out of that those tensions, and every time, I mean, it's usually me because I'm fighting with everyone all the time. But
to a certain extent, we depend on you to do that. But on the other hand, yes, you are. But on the no, it's there's a. I think you say you do this as a man, not a woman. I say you do it as a warrior, not well, or I don't know, a trolley simply to get the reaction. You seem to go in with a purpose to
yes,
get people to attend to something that you're trying to show them, which is a different sort of engagement. Whereas what I see, and I would say, if I'm going to be banned from the internet, I might as well be banned for something true. Women tend to do it a totally different way, right? They
mm,
play a very, very different game, which is basically pay attention to me. I mean, we live on it, ladies. We definitely want just to have someone pay attention. I've seen that. I've seen that, and I'm now remembering it watching at GCR. Right, I had a few accounts that I just had to ban because they were women, or they were behaving like women, who really all they needed to do, what they wanted to come into my chat and prance around and get all the men to pay attention to them, and I'm just like, this is not that role, not that room. Go away. This is a
yes,
fencing stall, and you can put your armor on and do the bout. But if you're in here disrupting that exercise in order to get the men to pay attention to you as a girl, it's the wrong energy.
yes. Well, this is why I didn't want anyone to know I was a female for so
Right.
long, because I was really enjoying the process of it's attentional redirection. So you get the attention for the if baiting somebody, but I'm not trying to get attention for myself. The idea is to redirect the attention onto concept and to the idea.
Right.
People have not had enough training thinking in the abstract about particular ideas instead of making everything about themselves as, like they'll personalize the problem, or they'll say, oh, you're saying this about X. I am connected to this thing, therefore you're attacking me as an individual. That's where people will blow out.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of garnering that intense focus is to try and shift it over to something which to me is just that. I mean, this is like a recreation of the dramatic arts. This is what drama was supposed to do. You're building the tension in an audience, and then getting everyone to focus on one particular thing, and then shifting it somewhere, and you're taking the audience on a journey to discovering something that you want to show them, whether it's like a particular the human psyche, or you're talking about a way that human beings relate to each other. I've done it a lot in order to get people to start discussing Christianity,
Right.
and start to think about the Christian faith in a very different way than people are have been used to doing. So it looks very unorthodox, and I think a lot of people have maybe thought that I was quite heretical in my approach. But at the end, I'm trying to get people to start to focus on things that have been buried, and yeah, it's this is part of the challenge too. It's like
Right.
uh, I think losing that anonymity, it's kind of changed the way that I can do it. But this is much more a masculine thing. The dramatic genius, it's masculine. Men used to do drama, like this
Oh.
Shakespearean aha, and then
Yes.
you get the reveal at the end. It's still a very masculine thing. So
Okay, I hadn't thought of that. I mean, that means that the poetry that we're trying to write is, I mean, it is masculine. It's men
yes,
wrote the kind of stories that we're saying. But then I was thinking, you're saying we are trying. This is a big project of our live stream, our podcasts. Is first, why poetry, why Christianity, and why our project in the Dragon Common Room. And I was saying the why in this is why do we know that we need to write the kinds of stories that we're doing in meter. Why Christianity, right?
yeah,
The deep questions is always about showing the way in which we know Christianity from the liturgy, from my research, from our prayer life, from the experiences that we've had, all of these things that just feel lost and drained out of modernity. I mean, I regularly have conversations with even Catholics, right, who tell me that they've never heard what I'm talking about. And I'm like, well, it was a pretty big deal for a millennium. And I'm not making this up. It's in the sources. And I know that it doesn't sound like anything you've ever heard, even as Catholics, but it was the ancient and medieval tradition. So we're trying to show them that.
yes,
But that, sort of at a even more poignant level, how to think about Christianity through story. So the why poetry and why Christianity is the same question, because it's like we start with this Christ as lover knight exemplum. It's very popular exemplum from the later Middle Ages and many sermon manuals. Their efforts to try to explain doctrine in the particular version I was trying to play off as, well, there is one version that I looked at today is Franciscan, right? They're trying to help people see the mystery of what God did for us, and they do it through these little stories that then open out into further mysteries, and you start mulling over, well, exactly what kind of relationship does God have to our soul, and so forth. And that we can't do it except through those sorts of stories, which get totally lost when you do the other thing that was very popular in the 12th and 13th century, which is end up in dialectical dispute. And
Debate me, bro.
Yeah, the sort of chivalric problem is both these imaginative stories of knights and ladies, and as Abelard famously described his own venturing from being an actual knight of grew up in a noble family and was meant to be, as the oldest son, a knight, abandoning that, going off to Paris and its environs and jousting and disputation, and then of course falling in love with his student Eloise and seducing her, and etc. Which is the other version of the great love story of the period. It's like hyper intellectual. Eloise was very masculine in her ability to read multiple languages and debate with Abelard, which is why they ended up having sex and a baby and getting married. And so there's another level of my desire to show people Christianity is that it's all of the above all of the time. It's not just can we be in these online internet debates that are proof of doctrine, or that we're also trying to show the mystery in the storytelling and art.